everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to create a fun felt stitching craft using the Spellbinders Felt Stitch dies. And because it's all back to school, we're going to stitch some fun apples. Now Spellbinders has a lot of different felt stitching dies, and I've gotten a few, and here I've got a fun candy cane for Christmas that'll be fun to stitch. We also have sunflower, which is nice now for the fall season to use in your in your decorating. And then also a fun strawberry that I used for a summer craft. Now what's nice about these dies, they punch the holes, and it's nice to teach young kids how to stitch because the holes are already there for them. Now what I do is I cut a piece of batting to put in between my layers, just to give it a bit of dimension and a little bit of a soft feel. So you can cut out an extra piece of felt and just add it in between there, but I just used the die to cut out a piece. So you have two different apples. You have one that's apples like it's been sliced, and then one that has a little face with some arms. And we are just going to use some DMC thread. I use 3 threads, 3 strands of DMC to stitch everything together. I find that it fills the holes quite nicely. I just make a knot at the end of my thread, and I start from the back, and I just go through. These holes all line up, so all the little pieces have their holes in it. And I just, with this little seeds that I'm stitching on here, I'm just going through twice, starting from the back, coming through the front, and just going in twice just to secure it on there. This piece goes onto your front piece of your apple, so the back of it you're not going to see, so I just tie a knot, put it in, and then just stitch it together, and then we just tie it off at the back before we stitch this piece of the apple onto the front. It's taking me a while here to get these tiny little pieces stitched on. There are some tiny pieces that if you want to and you don't want to stitch it, you can always just use some Aleene's glue or just some hot glue to add it on if it just becomes a little bit too finicky to stitch on. So there we've got our apple seeds, and just tying it off at the back, and then we'll be ready to stitch this apple slice onto the front of our apple. And what we're going to do is the same. We're just going to tie a knot, start from the back, and just go into every hole from the back down into the front, into the hole, all the way around. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and go into every other hole, so that we have our thread going through each and every hole, covering all the felt. So I'm not doing a back stitch. It's just easier going, especially if we're trying to teach children to stitch, going in the hole, coming back out. And you'll see here in a bit I get to the end, and then we'll start coming back. So you'll see here we are coming back already, so there's a continuous stitch of threads in here. Your thread also can get tangled. That is when you're using too long piece of thread, so you can always just use shorter pieces. So I've gone around, and here I'm now coming back, and you'll be able to, I've sped this up, be able to see that we are filling each hole, and there's no open pieces of felt in between the stitches. The stitches have got your thread throughout, and then I just tie it off at the end, And then we get to stitch. There you can see your threads all neatly. And now we're just going to attach 2 pieces. You can keep these, the holes line up, so it's very easy, but I've just put a pin in to make sure and make it easier if it moves. Don't forget to add your little stalk in there. And I just also tie a knot and put my thread in between the front and the back pieces, and then start going through the holes once again, just from the back, going through the next hole to the front, going all the way around, ensuring that you get your needle and thread going through your stalk so that that gets tied in also with some thread. And you can see your thread gets very twisted, so all you can do is you can just lift up and let go of your thread, and your thread will unwind itself, and then you can just carry on. And yeah, I'm just going in through the front, coming back out from the back. There you can see I've just unwound my thread, and I'll just continue all the way around and then turn around and come back, which then makes that your thread will go through the pieces that has not got thread on yet on the top of the felt. So once you look from the top, it'll have your thread continuously all the way around. I will show you that in a second here. And there we go, just making sure that I'm getting my thread and my needle through my little stalk piece. What you can do is, if you want, yeah, here we go, there you'll see the thread in all the holes across the felt. You're not seeing any felt in between the stitches. And that is your little apple. And now we're going to stitch the leaves. You get 2 kinds of leaves, one that has vines going to the side and one that just has a vine up the middle and stitching it around the edge. So I'll also just start with a knot, put that in the middle, in between, and I will go up from the center. And as I go up, I'll go up to the top, and when I come down back into all the other holes, as I'm coming down, I'll go to each vine. You'll see I'll come down, and then I'm going to go out to the one side, I'll come back in, and then we'll go across to the other side of the vine, and we'll go up and down, and then we'll come back, and that covers all the holes with your thread. And then you'll just go down and continue going out to the side and returning and coming back in and covering the other piece that has not been covered yet. And I'll just continue until you get to the bottom, and then once I've get to the bottom, I will put the thread, my needle, in between the 2 pieces of felt and just thread it through and cut it off. Just doing this last one, and there I'll put my needle in between, pull it through, and then just cut it off. And then you have your leaf ready to be placed. Now we're going to do our little flower. Here you'll see it cuts little slits in it, and you fold it in half, and I just hot glue it together in half, and then you will roll it up. And once it's rolled up, you'll just add a bit of glue to keep it there, and that is your centerpiece of your flower. Then I'll just glue that to my flower, and then what I do is, just to give the petals a little bit more of a dimension, I put a dot of glue on it and pinch the petals together and just put them around the center of the flower, so it just kind of hugs the center of the flower. And then once we finished here, I'll put it down to see where I would like it to be, and then we'll glue that down. If you don't like using hot glue, like I said, you could use Aleene's glue or any fabric glue. It'll just take a little bit longer to dry. I like hot glue because you get it done quickly. And there you have your little apple slice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch up our little apple that has a little face. So this one's much quicker and easier to stitch because you don't have a front. It's just the red two pieces with your batting in between, and you just stitch that up, remembering to put your little arms in as you go along. Also making sure that you getting your needle through those little arms because they are quite tiny. Just make sure that they don't pop out, and you'll just go in and out each hole. These holes line up, so it's quite easy to see. You can literally drop the needle through because you can see the hole, so it's easy when you're coming back up to put your needle through the right place, which is great for when children are stitching. It makes it easy. What I've done here is I've already made a little key ring with wooden beads that spells out teacher, and I've decided to make it easier for myself. I'm actually stitching it into my apple. It's got a little ring at the bottom, and I just put that in there. So if you want, you could always stitch your ring that you're going to connect your hooks on to hang it up into your apple, or you can always attach it with a pin or glue it on or stitch it on afterwards on the back of your apple. But I just thought this one would be easier to stitch in between already. And there we have our little funny apple stitched up with the little arms and the keyring on. Then it's got two little eyes and cheeks and mouth. Here we are just making another flower, gluing it, folding in half, gluing it, and then gluing it to the petals, putting some glue in between the petals, pinching that around the center just to give it a bit of a dimension, and then we'll position that where we want it and we'll glue that down. And then once we have that glued down, we decide where we want our eyes and our cheeks. Here you can see I decided those little felt eyes were just so tiny and your fingers get full of glue. I decided to go with some googly eyes. Much easier to glue it on. So that's what I decided. If you are good at art, you could always paint on or use some art pens, paint pens, and draw it on. But I just felt that this was a quick and easy and cute way to add those eyes to it. And there we have our two different designs of our apple all stitched up. Here I've done one that's already has little key ring. I just folded the little stalk in half and stitched that double to put the key ring through. And yeah, if you make a few, you could make a pretty garland with wooden beads in between or some felt balls in between. What I did was I just got a canvas bag from Hobby Lobby. I have a few of these, I don't know what you'll call them, little scarves, but pieces of fabric that I just tied around. I had this big safety pin that suited the craft, made it easier for me to decide to where to hook on the little key ring. And there we have, you could glue the little on the pocket, that apple if you want. And then there's a nice craft or gift bag to give to a teacher. I decided here to use the one that I'd already put the teacher on, and you could always personalize it with some iron-on vinyl with a teacher's initials. And here for our cross stitches, made some project bags and used these felt stitched apples as zipper pulls. So it's not just for children and kids crafts, you can use it also for other things. So these are just a few ways that you can use these felt stitching dies to add to crafts. It's a fun way for children to add to their little bags as a bag charm and to use as teacher gifts. Now what you can do is you can take it a step further and get into some stitching like I did here. I got these wonderful pincushion pattern of Etsy, and it's called From Nadra Ridge Designs. It's a really simple and easy pattern. You know, if you don't have a sewing machine, I'm sure you'll be able to hand stitch it, but it comes with color detailed instructions telling you how to do it. So this can be for a beginner stitcher. You'll create these little pockets and you will just fold that with some fiber foil, stitch it closed, and you will create your little apple. As you can see, I used the felt leaves. I didn't create the leaves with the fabric, and that's the larger apple and the smaller apple. So there are two sizes. A really, really quick and fun craft to do. These are fun just to add to your teacher gift, or to give your teacher, just to say thank you, and for her to add that to her table. Then for our quilters, you can create an apple quilt block. I have not quilted, but I am quite tempted to try this apple quilt piece then to use for a project bag for my cross stitching. So these are all the crafts that I hope you have enjoyed, and that you will try using the Spellbinders felt stitching dies. Have a